All right, what's up, everyone, to another video of Full Speed Impulse. We are back working on the XR70 today. We ended up digging a little deeper on this motor and all that, and we were trying to get the piston off, removing that pin, and that pin does not want to come out. So probably it being so hot, and then no oil was probably no bueno, and that pin is stuck in there, which pretty much ruins your rod. If we were to eventually get that pin out, chances are our next pin or sleeve or whatever you want to call that would not fit in there correctly. All right, so we ended up picking them off eBay. That was actually not a bad price because these things new actually are a pretty good penny, guys. And this one has the bearings and everything seems to be pretty good with it. So now what we have to do, though, is we have to split the cases apart, which is something we've never done before, but it doesn't seem like that bad of a job. Main thing is just paying attention where we put stuff and hopefully be able to put it back together on how we took it apart. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's get at her. All right, we took the cover off, which is pretty darn simple, guys. Now we're to our clutch here, which I believe, without looking, that you should undo these 4 screws here. This plate should come off, and I'm assuming this will slide off. And then we have a little clip here, and we're going to pull this stuff off here. And then back here is something we need to be careful when we undo this. I believe there's like some pins or something, but we have to make sure that we keep this stuff all together. But so far, so good. All right, we ran into our first roadblock, and you need a special tool to get this out. It's called a spanner tool, I believe, and we don't have one. So, or we did have one and we lost it. Either way, she gone. And so we ordered up a new one. It's $8. Instead of us mashing this with a flathead and a hammer, which people say you can get it off that way, we're just gonna wait a few days. Old Amazon Prime gonna take care of us. So we switched to this side. We already got our flywheel off, which we simply just took that nut off and we beat the side with the hammer, not aggressively, just hitting it from the sides, and then we were able to pry it right off. No big deal. So now we're gonna undo some of our stuff here. We got some old 8 mils laying around here, and then we gotta take our sprocket off too, and just start disassembling and trying to keep track of where everything goes. All right, so our tool came in, and it's just like I told you, just a little simple guy like that. Goes on your impact. Came right off, easy peasy. You gotta make sure we just have everything stacked correctly, so when we put everything back on, it's not a problem. And now we gotta undo this stuff, I believe. Oop, that should come right out. And then you gotta take another one of these guys off right here. And not too shabby. So once this stuff's off here, we could finally split the case. I think they told us to remove the oil pump too. Not sure if we actually need to do that or not. So we are going to double check and see if it comes off without removing our oil pump. All right, so we were just goofing around. We took our internals here on the oil pump. Wasn't quite sure if we needed to or not. And I just watched a quick video on splitting our cases since I don't have a tool to do it. I was seeing if anyone had a good, easy method without like beating your cases up and taking a chance of damaging them. And this one guy had a cool video of where he literally just put he actually had tire irons, but I just used a big flathead here. And then I actually had a little pry bar and literally put them in there just like that and pried, which put pressure on the cases, and this thing split right open. So we're just gonna gently work our way around and hopefully get this case split. I think we need to flip the motor on this other side though, because I think there's more like transmission, internal gears and all that on this side than this. This should be the cover that slides right off. So let's get at her. All right, so this is as easy as it looks, guys. We will be able to pull this crank right out once we have 2 hands, and then we will put everything back together. And we need a new seal, but we might reuse this one, even though it's really risky. But I think I'll just use some RTV to fill up a couple of these spots. But we always get really darn lucky. But I'll just dab a little RTV in some of the spots here. But yes, I would highly recommend, I would tell you that you should buy a new gasket because that's not going to cost you that much. But regardless, we'll be able to make this work. We're just going to, like I said, just dab a little RTV in some of the areas that are faded a little bit. And when it squishes together, we'll let it dry and all that. It'll be good to go. But besides that, let's get this thing back together, buttoned up, so we can get this XR70 back ripping. All right, so we got almost everything back together. So now what we can do is we could actually start working on the big bore here and getting this thing all set up. So we're gonna go over here. We already got our piston out. So how you're gonna set your rings up, you got your two skinnies here. So pretty much it'll go skinny, your oil ring, and that'll go on top and squish those together. And then over here, you have two rings, and one's going to be a little bit more narrow than the other. The more narrow one's going to go on this first slot here. The wider one's going to go on the second slot. And what you do is, this is going to be your intake, so this is going to be on the top side. You do them at 120 degrees with your gaps. So your gap on your first ring is going to be here. Your second ring, your gap's going to be over here. And then actually, since your other 120 degree mark would be right here, for these two here, you're going to just space one off to the right here a little bit. And then the other one, you're going to space off to the left. And that will be pretty darn good. And they say you want to put a little bit of oil on here when you're putting all this stuff on. And try not to stress the rings out too much by putting them on here and causing any premature damage or anything like that. And after you got that thing all ringed up, then we can slide that pin through and get this thing on the rod and ready to go.
A few moments later.
Alright guys, we got the motor all buttoned up, looking good. So now all we have to do now is install this back on the bike like we showed you before. It's a simple process of just a few bolts. Get the carb hooked back up. This has all been cleaned. Everything is good. Everything's timed. We just got to put oil in this thing and some gas. And hopefully she fires up. All right, we got the motor back in, exhaust buttoned up. We're gonna do our first fire up. We only had some 87 octane up in this garage here, so that's what we put in the bike. As long as we're just idling it, we're not doing any hard rips, it should be fine, but it is meant to run on higher octane, but we are just getting it to fire and idle, and hopefully she runs good. All right, guys, we got it running. Obviously, there's a couple issues still. We didn't replace the clutch. We were wondering if it was smoked. I'm not 100% sure, but I've read that when the clutch starts going on these things, it'll actually have issues starting. That's what it's got to be, I assume, because everything was put together and the clutch works sometimes, which we actually have the same issue on our CT70, which I am definitely sure the clutch is going on that thing because she shifts super hard sometimes. So that all being said, the bike runs good. She's running solid. We got to do some heat cycles on it, just a couple. Everyone's got their own different break-in process, but we try not to get too crazy on it, guys. And these bikes end up lasting. They're small motors. Like, it's going to be just fine. And as if you can't tell, it has been scorching hot this whole week. So trying to get this bike done out in the garage has been miserable. So been a little delayed. But that's about it for today's video, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, we'll see you later.